Today, March 11th, 2025, Washington State Governor Bob Ferguson sent out an email to Washington citizens regarding his emergency powers. What tricks does Bob Ferguson have up his sleeve now? We're going to get into it, and you might be surprised about this. Hey, everybody, I'm Julie Barrett, founder of Conservative Ladies of America, and we're going to dig into a really interesting email that I heard about from one of our conservative ladies of Washington leaders, Mary Long. She messaged our team and said, "Hey, did you guys see the email that came from Ferguson about his emergency powers?" And I was like, what is he doing now? Well, the email was not exactly what I expected. I was shocked. And it is something that I've been noticing a pattern of with Democrats in power, specifically talking about, well, Bob Ferguson, but also seeing Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, kind of trying to do this thing where he's looking to appeal to moderates. So let's take a look at this email. Now, I want to first preface this with in the legislature, there is currently a bill this session, Senate Bill 5434, that was a bipartisan effort to reform the governor's emergency powers. If you lived in Washington or you know about what happened in Washington during COVID, Governor Jay Inslee had emergency powers for 975 days, and there was really nothing that could stop him or put an end to his emergency powers. And so from, I think, 2022, the legislature has been working on trying to reform these powers so that the governor doesn't have this unlimited authority. And so with Senate Bill 5434, this was Republicans and Democrats working together to try to rein this in a little bit. We supported the bill, although it didn't go nearly as far as we would have liked. It was definitely a step in the right direction. Well, during the last executive session of this bill, where it was voted out of committee, the Democrats amended the bill and made it even worse than Washington's existing emergency powers for the governors. So if Senate Bill 5434 were to pass, the Washington state governor would actually have more authority than he already has in existing law. Now, in his inaugural address back in January, Ferguson came out sounding like he wanted to work with Republicans on these emergency powers, and the Republicans were really receptive for that and really thought that maybe he had changed his tune and he was going to be a little bit more moderate as a governor, to which I say, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. And Bob Ferguson, as Attorney General for 12 years, had done far more than enough to show everyone in Washington and all over the country exactly who he is. So let's dig into this email that was sent out today, and it's on the Washington governor's website. So I've got a link for that in the description below so you can go read it for yourself, but we're going to read right through it. It's not very long. Despite lawmakers on both sides of the aisle engaging in good faith negotiation, it's clear that the legislature will not adopt bipartisan legislation to place reasonable limits on the governor's emergency powers. Reform is necessary to protect Washingtonians in times of emergency while ensuring an appropriate balance between the branches of government. Now, I just want to pause here and remind you that there is no balance of power in Washington state. The Democrats all but have a supermajority. They are just a few seats shy in the legislature of a supermajority, and they hold every statewide office. So there is zero balance of power. The Democrats can pass whatever they want, and that's exactly what they do. There really is no resistance because there just aren't enough Republicans to make a difference. He continues, consequently, I commit to the people of Washington and the legislature that I will take the following actions in the event of an emergency when the continuity of government has not been disrupted. If I declare a state of emergency that lasts longer than 60 days while the legislature is not in session, I will terminate that emergency or any order arising from it. And here's where it gets dicey. If 3 leaders of the 4 legislative caucuses write to me requesting that action. Now let's pause here for a second because the legislative caucuses, so how that works is you would have one Republican, one Democrat from the Senate, and one Republican and one Democrat from the House. So that makes up your 4. Now, you would have to have 3 of them write to Ferguson to ask him to terminate his emergency powers. Which of the Democrats are going to go along with the Republicans and ask him to do that? Neither of them. So that's not going to happen. But I have to give him credit for sounding quite nice here. All right, let's keep going. Moreover, if the state of emergency has been in place longer than 120 days while the legislature is not in session, I will call a special session to give the legislature the opportunity to terminate an emergency order or declaration. Again, the Democrats have a huge majority in Washington state legislature. They almost have a supermajority. So I think that while this might sound good to some people, he's definitely trying to appear as though he's moderate and that he wants to work across the aisle. He knows, just like everybody else, that he does not need a single Republican to support him having emergency powers. And I think you would see exactly what you saw during the COVID emergencies. You would see the Democrats being a united front with the governor as they were with Jay Inslee. So he goes on and says this policy will remain in effect as long as I am governor, unless the legislature adopts bipartisan legislation amending these emergency powers. Now, the bill I told you about, Senate Bill 5434, has it passed out of committee, so it did make the cutoff. It isn't even on the Senate floor calendar to get a vote, and tomorrow night is the cutoff for this session. So in theory, I mean, the Democrats are in control, so they could do whatever they want, but in theory, it would need to be passed out of chamber by tomorrow night. Now, it still could happen, but based on this letter, I'm thinking that it's not going to happen. So he's just trying to make it sound, he's kind of playing this good cop, bad cop thing here, making himself look good and kind of placing the blame on the Democrats in the legislature. The email continues. Senator Keith Wagoner, who was a co-sponsor of this bill, shared this statement in response. I welcome the governor's proactive approach. It demonstrates his sincere understanding of the issue of unchecked governor's emergency powers and the important role the legislature plays. This is a win for Washington citizens, but it is a perishable win. The legislature needs to codify similar provisions into law. Now, he is exactly right there. I wouldn't call it a win because you have the Democrats in control of everything. So it's really not a win for the citizens. However, this is really just Bob Ferguson giving his word, which I don't know how much that is worth. You see what he's doing in resistance to the Trump administration. And, he's even sued a sheriff in Washington state, I believe it's Adams County, who is enforcing the immigration policies of the Trump administration. The Attorney General, Nick Brown, has filed a lawsuit against that sheriff for following federal law. So I don't have a lot of faith in Ferguson or anybody in this administration. I think this is laughable, and I would hope that the Republicans in the legislature are seeing through this, seeing it for what it is. This doesn't change anything. Bob Ferguson is a power-hungry tyrant, and people need to be eyes wide open. I would hope that all Republicans are seeing this for exactly what it is. This email was definitely not what I expected when Mary told me that she got an email about his emergency powers. I thought, oh my gosh, he's gone and declared an emergency already. So thankfully that was not the case, but I do think there's something up their sleeves. Something is coming. They're passing enough bills this session that give the governor a lot of broad authority, power, and control in an emergency situation. So that's not good. Anyway, I've got links to both the Senate Bill 5434 to reform the governor's emergency powers and Bob Ferguson's email in the description below. Thanks so much for watching. Please do share this video. Make sure that you are subscribed to the channel and make sure you turn those notifications on, and I'll see you in the next video.